Okay, shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you decide which scenes and objects to represent in your work?
Right. Yeah, well, I experience life just like you and every other human being. And sometimes I see an object with a certain light on it, or a certain scene, an interesting scene on the news. And then I think, oh, I want to register that in my memory. So I don't have a really good memory. So I use the mobile to photograph it. So or if I have time, I make a drawing, a live drawing of the scene or the object or whatever attracts my attention. But then I am sure that I have that source. So I make like, a bank of images, photographic images. If it's a photograph, then I get that photograph and I do a drawing out of it. If it's a drawing, I just hang the drawing there, and then I look, I take a distance of time, I take a distance of space, I look and I look again. And then if that drawing really insists on becoming a painting, like if it tells me, listen, I want to become a painting, it's almost like a dialogue. I listen to the image, to the drawing. But there is this process of, the real thing from photography or the real thing from drawing. And then if it tells me I want to become a painting, then I start thinking about scale. I cropped, just a gesture, a hand, and the composition. Sometimes I work a lot with association of ideas. So it can remind me of a painting I've seen in a museum, or that image can remind me of a historical scene. And then I like putting one thing over the other, or just making a composition. And then I start thinking about the palette of colors and how I'm gonna make it. I've heard about this. It's a concept, philosophical concept, that I thought it was really interesting. It's called panpsychism, which means that everything in the world, even the smallest one, have consciousness. So I was like, oh, what an interesting idea. So it's almost like that, as if the sofa had consciousness and the sofa is just talking to me, The sofa is like, hi. So it's a bit like that. It's a bit mad, but it's like, yeah, things are like animated and talking to me. And if they insist, I transform them in paintings.
Thank you. I love that. From the point of view of the viewer, I think we're in a really interesting position. I did want to kind of ask, how important the viewers kind of memories and subjective experiences are. Kind of how important are they for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe in art just like as self-expression. I really want to, put something in the world, and I want to reverberate a self-reflection, like a mirroring with effect, like when you enter an elevator where there are like two mirrors, one in front of the other. So it's a kind of self-reflection, but there is this mirroring effect, like, So if it doesn't reverberate on the other, or the viewers or the spectator, then I don't know. I'm not sure if it's, So there is this utopy of spreading out this joy of the pleasure of creating it, and all these things that I've that I thought, and all the process that I went through. But also there's something which is, I don't believe, like involuntary memory. It's just a concept that reminds me of, I mean, the term came with the novel of Marcel Proust, In the Search of Lost Time, right? He was just a bourgeois guy, and he went to eat this piece of cake with his aunt, right? He ate the Madeleine, and then suddenly the sound surrounding him, the taste, the smell, the experience he was having while eating that Madeleine cake just transported him to this involuntary memory, transported him to his childhood in Cambrai. And then he wrote the 7 volumes of this, you know, the biggest novel of the 20th century. But also in this novel, which is like a narrator's journey of self-discovery. And also I treat like my work a bit like that, though it's not self-expression only. It's a bit like every painting I make is a bit of a chapter that I'm like trying to understand my journey in this world. And it's a way I'm narrating and you know, this experience of life in this, you know, contemporary life in this century now. But he has this thing like this instant, and I think instant is more important than an eternal, you know, idea. You know, sometimes you can be happy just for an instant. And Marcel Proust, he wrote in this really weird kind of time, which is like until that point, he wouldn't know how madly jealousy he would be about her in his entire life. Like the narrator, or like, you know, if it is the sofa talking, like again, you know, if it's an object as a character, I think, you know, I like playing this game, you know, until that point, that sofa wouldn't be able to know how many times we would kiss there sitting on it. But there is this, the narrator is in the future, but he's telling about something that happened in the past, in the present time, but talking also in the present time, which is the past time, but talking about the projection of the future. So it's this confluence of time. And also, so when I paint, I really I live this really weird time as well. I come and go, you know, there's the projection of the future, then there's my memory, and then the instant where I'm doing the brush mark. And also, so I believe like when the viewers there having the experience of looking at it, and there are layers and layers and layers and layers, maybe he can get something out of that instant. And also we are all dealing with these objects, you know, ordinary life and common things like an IKEA bed. I mean, in Brazil, it's not really normal, but in Europe it is, you know, but or just a Chesterfield sofa, you know. But we give different experiences to that, you know. Or a clothesline. Okay, that's more ordinary, that's more common. We all deal with it. A saucepan. But we live different things. We give affection to these specific ordinary objects, things from life. So I hope, you know, at some point, if the person looked to the representation of that object and that specific instant, maybe I can touch something in the viewer's brain and make this person be transported, you know, yes, somewhere in time in his brain. A bit complex, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I mean, you know, it kind of is complicated, but I think you just explained it really, really beautifully then. Thank you. I was totally mesmerized by what you were saying. And I think it's so true in your work. You know, all of these kind of objects that are so ordinary suddenly become like, you know, things with a life, and things that, you know, that take you to another place as well. And I think that's really, really lovely that you're able to achieve that. And I loved what you said in your statement about your research. I'm reading the quote now: exploring the importance of art and freedom in relation to the joy of existence. I think that's beautiful. And I kind of wanted to make sure that we include that in the video. And I was wondering whether you could just kind of expand on that and what you mean by that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people are kind of losing the joy of you know, just exist, you know, just to be in the world. So I was thinking, you know, how important art and freedom is on that, you know, on bringing back to people the joy of existence. And because art has something ambiguous. It doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to have a label. It's just there. It's you have an experience with that. And nowadays people are just wanting to label everything, and the whole world is becoming really depolarized, you know, like, you know, what side are you? So I think art is really important because it's this third margin of the river, as this Brazilian author called Guimarães Rosa would say. It's not A or B, you know, it's the river. So I think it's really important, these, you know, in society. And freedom is, well, it could be another word for solitude, or another word for loneliness, maybe, you know, because once we are alone, and we could think, oh, how sad, and sometimes it is. Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, it's really important to live in a community, but also we are free if we live in a democracy, right? Anyway, so talking about that, it's just I'm Brazilian, and in Brazil right now there's a wreck of, you know, culture, dismantling of culture, art. There's censorship. There's you know, art is not important. Of course, we have this historical, the whole society, the whole country was built on a really violent mix of Amerindian, African, and European people. So we have a really huge social inequality. We were the last country to abolish slavery in the world, and we are just living now. It's a really young country. It's a young democracy. So we are living now the consequences of our own history, and things are just flourishing. But you know, behind the scenes, there's a very conservative and racist society, and it's just, you know, when you think, oh my God, you know, people are not really giving the importance, the value. They are not valuing art and just freedom, you know, to be whatever you want. And then people start getting depressed, and then, oh, you need a purpose for life. You need, you know, to look for some sense. What's the sense of life? Life is absurd. There's no sense in life. We're gonna die anyway. So it's just, you know, this is, I believe that if I really resist on being an artist, and just creating art. I'm gonna like kind of spread out this idea of, are you enjoying yourself? You know, are you having pleasure? We can live for pleasure. We can be hedonists.
I agree.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's we're also focused on what our purpose is, and you know, having this kind of purposeful, as you say, very ordered life, and you know, we forget to have fun sometimes. So I think the biggest kind of question I had about your artworks themselves and kind of your process, I suppose, is the fact that, you know, they're all so different, but they're all kind of this, like the same size, the same scale.
Oh,
a lot of them have a similar kind of color palettes, and I was just wondering if that is something that's particularly important to you in your work, that kind of consistency.
Yeah. Another research for me very important is empathy. So if I say I love you, but if I don't think about the other person, you know, I'm not really practicing empathy. So the same thing, I start researching with colors, you know, how this blue is gonna feel, you know, being near to this yellow. So and so then, yeah, I think, you know, so I set up these rules of only working with 6 colors, because then, you know, there's this harmony, and I can just, it becomes more subtle and harmonious, and then I can be, you know, more profound on that. You know, if you work with a small scale with layers and layers, then there's like a kind of mystery, you know, there's something hidden in there, and I like that, you know. It's like the involuntary memory that I was talking about, you know. It's just, it's there, it's behind the layers of these colors that work well together, you know. And so the black is made out of the mixture of these colors. And yeah, well, I learned that a lot this last year while doing the masters. So yeah, and I think for my tutor, Dexter Darwood, we talked a lot about that, you know. He made me realize. And the scale is just, I think, you know, there's a lack of space in the world. People doesn't really have walls for big paintings, and it's all about intimacy as well, you know. I want to invite people to get close to the painting, and I want to touch them in their intimacy, and I'm exposing my intimacy. So yeah,
I agree. They are, that's part of what I really like about them, that intimacy, that quietness, and the fact that it draws you in and you can spend lots of time with it. I think that's a really lovely thing. You touched on your experience of being at Bath Spa and being taught by Dexter Darwood, which kind of leads me quite nicely onto that question of how did the MA at Bath Spa shape your practice?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, because it was a whole year that I was living abroad. You know, I was living also the experience of being a foreigner. So I started the master as a foreigner, and when I got there, I was like, you know, coming from Brazil, so I was like, oh, you know, painting big and really aggressive gestures, and a lot of yellow, and you know, just it's not yellow, it's like the colors, you know, the light in Brazil is, everything is like wow hysterical, and I got there like that, and then I read this book of Julia Kristeva, because called Strangers to Ourselves, and it was really good, because then I was like, but we all have a stranger within ourselves. So, you know, who is this foreigner that inhabits within myself? So I started really like becoming more secure to engage myself, which means body, mind, spirit, in my work, you know, and also to connect that with a research. So to develop a methodology, you know, these kind of things, which helps a lot. So yeah, and also, I mean, Beth is just beautiful. It's a small city, and it's near the mountains, and we can walk and relate to nature, and it was really, really good. I mean, even with the pandemic.
So do you have a favorite painting of your own in the exhibition? Are there any pieces that we've chosen that you like best?
Well, I really like Cronus devouring myself, which is because I saw this painting in Madrid at the Prado Museum when I was 18, this Peter Paul Rubens painting called Cronus devouring his sons. And it's different from, there's the Goya one, which is more monstrous, but the Peter Paul Rubens one is more, it's an old man eating a baby. And I was very impressed. But that trip is specifically, I was 18 years old, and I went to London, I went to Madrid, and I don't know, I just, that's when I think I realized I really wanted to be an artist, and I had no choice. But then a long time later, I'm there in Bath, locked down, and I was just looking at my self-reflection, and I just felt, oh, wow, you know, Cronus is devouring myself. I just felt time, you know, looking at my face, and I, whoa, and then I just painted, you know, just, it's just a self-portrait, and then a hint of that Peter Paul Rubens, but also the way I painted it just shifted the way I started painting afterwards, and I loved it, and it was a surprise in a way. So I love that painting. Yeah.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, Daniela. Really, really has. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Well, it was great talking to you too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Have a lovely day and a lovely weekend.
And you. Yeah.